Welcome to Home Dad Chat, brought to you by the National At-Home Dad Network. My name is Brock,
My name is Danny.
and we are here to talk about life as stay-at-home dads. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
No, I don't want much. I even love handmade crafts made of macaroni. Come on now, you should know me. Times I might eat too much. No worry about my weight, got the dad bod rocking on me. Sketches on my feet, cargo shorts look good on me. I'm a dad, that's what I do.
What's going on? Oops.
What is going on with
record
you,
that,
man? I hit record without you actually knowing it. Hey, everybody, welcome to the show. Oh, it's going to be a real good one tonight.
Right? Just
It's going to be.
Captain America coming on. Captain
even know
America,
where to
the
start.
at-home dad. Yeah, right. Just, yeah. A very, very impressive guest coming on tonight.
By far one of the most highly decorated stay-at-home dads we will ever talk to. The list of things that this man has done is long and very much decorated military man. He's gonna come with some stories.
Right. And we've discussed it earlier. We were talking about, well, where do we start? What do we cover? What do we want to talk about? Because there's just too much. You can't do it you can't cover everything in one shot. So
It's one of those, this is a good problem to have. There's so many different ways to come at this interview, but I don't know,
well, before we get into it, I want to say something completely sidetracked before I forget. And we don't do this often enough, something I want to try to do. But today is Brett Landry's birthday.
Really?
I'm gonna put it out there because I forgot about it. Sorry, Brett. But happy birthday.
Happy birthday, buddy.
Yeah. Brett, for anybody that doesn't know him, is one of our big volunteers. He's been on the moderation team for a very long time. And I will say this, he lived on the other side of Atlanta from me. So he's probably about an hour and a half away from where I lived in Georgia. And when my mom passed, he came to the funeral.
Oh.
So, I mean, he went all the way across Atlanta, which is never a good thing. And I was just so touched by that. But that's the kind of guy he is. He just said, well, of course, your mom died. I got to be here. Then there was no question in his mind. And he's always like that. So I definitely wanted to make a point to sidetrack us before we get on to talking to our guest.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome, man.
Happy birthday, Brett.
Happy birthday, Brett. Definitely. Yeah. So our guest tonight, dude, the list is long. I will say this. He's a stay-at-home dad, combat veteran. So he suffered a traumatic brain injury, survived a stroke, para-athlete. He calls himself a super dad. I would definitely give him that title.
Yeah.
Superhuman. I'm going to give him that title too.
If we were sitting around and there was a world's greatest father mug on the thing and I was having coffee in it, I would hand it to him and go, sorry, man. I didn't even take your mug, buddy.
I cashed in my card on that one, friend.
I got to give that one in. Yep.
Yeah. So, and 9-year U.S. Marine Corps, completed 3 deployments in Iraq, which just is mind-boggling to me. 3 different deployments over there, and then he, now he's all into the Paralympics and just, running away with it in different ways and biking away with it in other ways and skiing away with it.
Like you said, there's just too much. Master of Science. Just read that. Master of Science.
Yeah.
Paracycling World Championship medalist, gold medalist, and silver medalist, Paracycling World Cup men's trike. I mean, it's just too much, man. We gotta get him on. Let's just gotta get him on. We'll let him tell his story rather than we try it.
Definitely. And while we get him on, you can all go to DennisConnorsusa.com and check out his website, and we'll bring Dennis on in just a moment. Become a member of the National At-Home Dad Network, an organization focused on providing advocacy, community, education, and support, connecting with households where dad is the primary caregiver of the children. We do this through our webinar and podcast series, mental health support groups, regular online social events, as well as our annual convention. The National At-Home Dad Network is a 100% volunteer organization Without the generous support of its members and the community around it, we would not be able to continue the work that we do. Becoming a member gives you access to past convention speaker presentations, the ability to vote for board members annually, and ensures that the organization's fees and bills are in positive standing. Oh yeah, it should not go unmentioned that there is some cool swag headed your way if you decide to become a member. For only $35 a year, your membership provides you with the exclusive content only we can generate, and you'll be supporting an organization that benefits families all around the country and world. By advocating for them, offering them community, providing education and guidance, and supporting them to grow in their parenthood journey. And one last thing, if you contribute $500 or more, you will become a lifetime member. Not only will you receive everything already mentioned, but also a certificate recognizing your status and an exclusive National At-Home Dad Network challenge coin with our trademark logo, Dads Don't Babysit. So, what are you waiting for? Become a member today. Hey everybody, welcome back. As we were saying before, we have a very special guest with us tonight. We are very honored to have Dennis Connors with us tonight. And we actually came across a post that he had put out talking about all of the things that he's working on and going towards over the next year. And we were just really motivated to get him on the show because he's got a lot of stories and I want to hear them. I think Danny does
have
too.
some stories, yeah.
But welcome to the show, Dennis.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Definitely. So like I said, I told everybody prior to this, I was like, y'all need to go to DennisConnorsUSA.com so that you can pull up the website, because I feel like we're not going to hit everything that that's on this website, which by the way is very beautifully laid out and has lots of information on it. And you could spend a good day just reading through all the things on here. But just so folks can get a chance to know you, give us a little bit of background on who you are and a little bit on your family.
Yeah, no problem. So first, thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here. It was great when you guys reached out. You're like, you should be on our podcast. I was like, absolutely. I'd love to share my story and how it kind of relates to being a dad, stay-at-home dad, and then, what I've got going on over the next year or 2 years. So my family and I, we live in Beaverton, Oregon, just outside Portland. As you guys know, I'm a stay-at-home dad. My wife works for Nike, so kind of a sports emphasis there. She was an engineer for Nike. I've got two little ones. Yep. Older daughter who's 8, her name's Kennedy. Younger son, Soren, who's 6. But the way that their ages fall, they're in 1st and 2nd grade.
Okay.
Yeah, Soren's the young one in his class, and Kennedy's the older one in her class. So they're back to back. I mean, lots of people think they're twins, but they're definitely not. Yeah,
it does make it easier having them that close, I think. It's done well for a couple of my kids that are just like, okay, so you're in, and then when you get to middle school, you'll have that 1 year where they're not in the same, and you're going to 2 schools, and then you get back to 1 school again. It's great.
Yeah, it's been great. Kennedy did her kindergarten year during the pandemic, so she did it remote, and Soren basically audited kindergarten by sitting in the room with her.
Nice.
So he did great, and their school is great. Yeah, so everything's going awesome with them. Let's see. As you guys saw from my website, I grew up in the kind of all over California, just half in Southern California in the mountains near Big Bear, and then half in the Bay Area till I was 18. And then when I was 18, I joined the military. I joined the Marine Corps 2003, served from 2003 to 2012 in the intelligence fields, mostly tactical intelligence, signals, and then human intelligence and counterintelligence. So I got 3 deployments to Iraq. It's where I got injured, and then this is how I got into the parasports world. We got out of the military. My wife and I were engaged, and we loved rock climbing and skiing. So we moved from San Diego to Salt Lake City, so we could ski and climb and have real jobs, because it wasn't like a tiny ski town where we'd wait tables or something. We lived there for 3 years. I went to graduate school and worked for a company, Black Diamond Equipment. They manufacture rock climbing gear and skis.
Yeah.
And that's where
that's a good choice, you know.
Yeah.
Follow your passion, right? You know, if you love it, you never have to work a day in your life. That's great. That's like right down your alley.
Yeah. So I did that with them. And we were kind of all in on skiing and rock climbing. And our daughter was born. And 10 months later, my wife got a call, basically, from Nike. An old coworker of hers had recommended her for a position that they couldn't seem to fill, and she had the exact skill set. And she's like, okay, I'll check it out. She's like, I'll check it out. And then she's like, oh, that's pretty cool, but we're not leaving Salt Lake. We want to stay here so we can ski and climb and, raise our daughter and subsequent kid in the mountains. And they basically were like, well, what would it take to get you to come?
Oh, wow.
And so I was like, well, I could be a stay-at-home dad for a little while when we move, and, until we get established and get Kennedy into some sort of daycare. And so, 7 years later, here I am, still stay-at-home dad. Because when we moved, we thought we would get Nike provided. They had a great preschool program on campus, but we didn't realize it was really hard to get into. So that's kind of how I became a stay-at-home dad. Was like, well, we moved and Kennedy was already born, so we weren't on all the daycare lists, as you guys probably remember.
Right.
You got to like plan your pregnancy around.
Yes, you do.
Daycare.
Right. No kidding. Yeah.
You should have already picked out college before you got pregnant. What's going on? Yeah,
exactly. And so, it just worked out. And then she got pregnant again with our son. And we were like, well, now daycare is going to cost a crazy amount of money. And, I could go back to work, but it makes more sense for me to like take them, do what I do, and just raise them out climbing. So when Kennedy was little and Soren was little, I mean, I had them out rock climbing, I had them out fly fishing. I would put them both in the trailer and take them on 30, 40, 50-mile bike rides, put them behind the mountain bike, put them behind the mountain bike.
Yeah.
If the mountain bike and then the trailer tipped over, they would get a treat. So then they would be back there like trying to tip it over. So our Osprey backpack child carrier got a lot of use.
Nice. That's a good company. They put out some good backpacks too.
Yeah, they're a great company. That's kind of how the first couple years of being a stay-at-home dad was. And then the pandemic hit, and I was having all these balance issues, and I didn't realize what was going on. I was riding a bike in a veterans group. We were doing some like 5-day rides down the coast of California once a year, and they're like, man, you should really, compete in cycling. It'd be really cool. And I'm like, but I don't have the injuries to compete in paracycling. And my friend's like, what do you mean? You definitely have the brain injuries. And I'm like, I don't have that. Because I never knew I had it.
Oh, you'd never been like tested for it or anything like that?
Never been tested, because in the military, if I would have been like, oh, I got, this explosion or this hit to the head or whatever, they would take me out of my job.
Right. Yeah.
So there's a big thing with traumatic brain injuries coming out of the military where guys don't say anything.
Right.
Right. It's like NFL players.
Yeah. With concussions. Yep.
It's kind of like the whole suck it up type thing. And I'm like, okay, well, let me check it out. And I talked to my doctor about having these balance issues, and they're like, well, let's do a brain scan. So I finally had an MRI done. And the next morning, the neurologist called me at 8 a.m. and was like, you have damage on your cerebellum. And I'm like, is that why I can't balance on a bicycle? He's like, yep.
Wow.
Okay. So I was like, okay, well, that's good to know. At least I'm not just like uncoordinated.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? And yeah, so I start training in cycling. I go to a couple races, and then boom, pandemic hits. And in May of 2020, during the pandemic, we are fortunate enough to own a vacation rental outside of Bend, Oregon. So we were down there because you couldn't rent it, and no one was in school. Crystal, my wife, was working from home, and I was walking home from the store. My left side started to not work, and later that night, I was slurring my speech, and
Okay.
I
Yep.
ended up having a stroke.
Wow.
Um,
And how old are you?
I am 37.
Okay.
And basically, it comes down to the more concussions and brain injuries you've had,
Right.
the more likely you are to encounter a stroke, just because things in there are already damaged and blood can get caught going the wrong way. And yeah. And so I rehabbed for about 9 months, like bent on getting back on my bike and getting back climbing and getting back skiing. And eventually they're like, hey man, like you're not going to be able to ride a bike. Like we've gone as far as we can in this therapy. You've plateaued. You've been here for 9 months. And I was like, okay. Luckily, I was already involved in the parasport world. And my coach was like, hey, let's put you on a trike to see if that helps. And so I got a trike axle and I started riding it, and I was like, man, I should have had this thing before my stroke. like
Yeah.
my friend, at my first race on the trike, my friend who got me into the cycling, she was riding next to me, and she was like, oh my gosh, I'll ride next to you now. You're so much more stable on that thing. She's like, I'd always ride way out in front of you or way behind you, but never right next to you. And I was like, thanks, Sean.
That bike is a sweet setup, by the way. I love.
Yeah, thanks.
I'm a cyclist myself, and actually, there's another board member who's there's a couple board members that are big cyclists as well. We actually have
got your own jersey.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna tell you. There's a jersey that we have actually that says
cool.
has like the dads don't babysit stickers on it with our logo for the National At Home Dad Network that we actually paired with a company. They made like some awesome bibs and jerseys for to be purchased. So, but yeah, no, I was looking at your setup on this trike, and that's a really nice ride you got there.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Yeah, it's really, really awesome. And it's pretty stable. It's hard to corner in, but you get used to it. It's kind of like those old 3-wheel ATVs, they can tip over pretty easily.
Turn and then lean in the opposite direction kind of deal.
Yep. Yeah.
Yep.
Definitely.
Yeah. And you're going at speed. I mean, I'm not saying you're like racing. I'm guessing you're going for more distance rides. So, but you're still going fast enough that any mistake at that level is going to really throw you off the bike. It sounds like, or the trike, excuse me.
It can definitely. Yeah. In our races, we are racing and I race only against trikes. So we will, in an international race, we'll have 20, 25, 30 of us in a pack.
That's quite a peloton you got there.
Yeah, of people with balance issues on tricycles. It's a good show.
Are you pretty close together too? I mean,
exciting.
Even though you got the wheels on the back.
Yeah, they put this bar on the back, so then the front wheel can't go in between the back two wheels.
There's like that's good.
Draft bar.
Okay.
So everybody's required to have one of those.
Okay.
But your draft bar gets bumped constantly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you know it. You know it.
Yeah.
Rubbin's racing, man.
Basically, yeah.
I'm right here. You need to get out of my way. No, I'm in front, man. Nuh-uh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel you bumping, but that's because you're behind me. Yeah, I get it.
You got some guy behind you,
100%.
shake and bake, man, shake and bake.
Totally.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome, dude. Oh no, this, gosh, like I said, like that's a really cool ride you got there. I want to jump back a little bit to what you were talking
Okay.
about before, though. And I really appreciate everything that you shared with so far, because honestly, like it opens up a can of worms of so many stories I feel like we could go down into. But I kind of want to go back. So you mentioned that you're a veteran of U.S. military, 9 years, and you had suffered some TBIs that you didn't find out till later.
Mhm.
And you were part of intelligence. What sort of were you involved in that kind of put you in a situation where you suffered the traumatic brain injuries?
A couple of them were explosions. Like one of them was, honestly, it was on a base.
Yeah.
And our base got attacked.
Okay.
And a big rocket barrage came in, and I was eating lunch,
Oh,
and
jeez.
it hit the biggest building on the base, which was the chow hall. And
Yeah.
luckily, like it was a big chow hall, so it hit one side. It knocked me out.
Jeez.
But we had 27 wounded in action, killed in action in that
Ooh,
attack, just in that.
Dang.
So that was a pretty big one.
yeah.
Yeah, so it was kind of just, it was a repetitive, like mild TBIs and mild concussions,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well,
between training and combat and shooting, and it all just eventually caught up with me, I think.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah.
Appreciate you
And
sharing
like you
that.
said, well, I don't say I'm this way anymore, but we've always been trained and taught as just just as a person, as a man. You're fine. Suck it up. Don't. Yeah, you're not. You can keep doing this. Just keep doing your thing, and then going further through basic and into the military,
Mhm.
especially as a Marine. There's no leeway. There's
No,
no weakness.
definitely not.
If you're limping, someone's gonna put something on you. Like, what's going on, man? Your leg hurt? Oh yeah, I've got literally a metal rod shoved through it. Yeah, I've got to go have that
Yeah,
taken out. And you're supposed to be able to just walk it off. You
yeah,
know, and with something especially when it comes to brain injuries, because there's no real obvious. You're not bleeding out. You're not in a
right,
place where you don't have a gash on your head that shows you can see your skull. It's
exactly.
just, yeah, I got bumped around. And there's really, I mean, the little that I know about it, honestly, there's not a lot of support for it. And the end of it is, oh, you got hurt. Well, then you're off your job, like you said earlier. And it's
Right.
just such a terrible situation, but what else can you do? You just got to keep
Yeah.
pushing on. So,
Yeah.
tough.
I think we're going to be seeing more of it as a lot of the veterans of the Iraq and Afghanistan wars
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
start to get a little older, and I will see what happens 10, 20, 30 years
Yeah.
afterwards, kind
Yeah.
of like we've seen with veterans from the Vietnam War with
Mm-hmm.
Agent Orange and Gulf War syndrome from the first
Yeah.
Gulf War. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got a good buddy who he was over in Afghanistan a couple times, and when he came back, he was always talking with people about PTSD and getting tested for it and all these different things. And during all that time, he himself never went and got checked out for it
Mhm.
until a few years back. And he was having all kinds of different issues and things, and he just sort of kept pushing it off. And eventually, like, he went and got checked out, and they're like, yeah, like, you're actually really high on the scale for PTSD.
Yeah.
Like, and
Yeah.
it was just that made him even more of an advocate in the fashion of like, all right, like, one, I put this off on myself. I'm hurting me and my family in this. Like, we need to fix
Mm-hmm.
this. But at the same time, too, like, you know, if you've been in any type of combat situation, like, you should definitely take the time to go get
Yeah.
checked out and things. And so,
And
yeah.
even
Mhm.
non-combat situations with the military. I mean, we've had plenty of stories of people that they
Yeah.
never fired their weapon. They were never fired on, but it was around them, and they were in a constant state of hyper awareness, which that
Right.
in and of itself can, push it. It's
Yeah.
really such a just almost nebulous thing that, well, how did you get it? Oh, you name it. You know,
Right.
I knew somebody that I was in a group with, so a support group with, who had PTSD from a car crash, and
Yep.
he didn't even get injured. You know, he said I was a little sore, but then I just can't drive now. And
Yeah.
the things that can happen to us, that's just civilian life. You know,
Yeah.
I'm not a vet, so that's just this over here, the easy stuff, you know, the easy life, much less the things you have to go through as a soldier. So it's really
Yeah.
good that he's talking about it, for one, and also that you are so open about it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Definitely.
No, definitely. And that's kind of one of the things that I've been working on bringing up is sharing my story, because I also have PTSD
mm-hmm.
from my time in. No surprise there.
Yeah.
And with the PTSD, I had some really hard times. And now, you know, with what I'm doing in the parasports world, between the cycling and the climbing, and my struggles with the mental health side of it, and then coming
Mm-hmm.
back from that, and then having the stroke, and coming back from that, and then battling with the TBIs the whole time, and coming back from that. I'm really trying to share this story of perseverance,
Yeah.
which is a
Yes.
totally different story than what we're told perseverance is.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And I have like a whole other definition, and trying to just get out and do more public speaking about it, and sharing that, hey, perseverance is not suck it up, grit, determination, all these things.
Mm-mm.
If you really truly want to persevere, you're going to have to be vulnerable. You're going to have to open up. You're going to have to ask for help. You're going to have to
Yes.
rely on a support network of some kind. You're going to have to find a community to be involved with.
Yeah.
And all of those things, we don't think about that when we think about perseverance.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And, you know, I'm showing that those are the things I did and I still do. And now these are the successes that I am having. Especially in cycling. Last year was my first real season cycling on the U.S. team.
Mm-hmm.
I won 2 World Cups. I got second in another one at World Championships during the time trial. I found out that I have what's called autonomic dysreflexia, which means your autonomic nervous system doesn't work. So my body
Oh,
doesn't cool off.
yeah.
Oh, wow.
So if I get hot or my heart rate goes up, it's very difficult for it to come down. So I was doing my time trial effort, and the team directors in the car behind me, and they're like, "Are you okay? What's going on?" They weren't like, "Come on, Dennis, come on, Dennis." At one point, they were like concerned.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I got off my bike. They had to carry me off the trike, sit me down. The doctor was there, who basically told me that this is what's happening. I had cold packs on. My heart rate was over 180, and it would not come down.
Wow.
Um, and I ended up still getting 4th place in the race
I love it.
out of like 22.
Oh, wow.
But
I love it,
just to
dude.
say, and then the doctors and the team supported me. And 2 days later, we did the road race in the group. And I was like, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to race this thing. But I went out there and gave it all. Had some mechanical issues, had to chase back onto the group. Like, you know, I'm like the target now, you know, so everybody's attacking me the whole time, trying to wear me out. And I got second by like not even half a bike length. It came down to a sprint, and I had to
Wow.
go around somebody, and the other guy had a straight line.
Yeah.
That's
So,
awesome.
and so I'm like, so that's that like perseverance thing, is like you keep
Yeah.
getting knocked down, and I just use that, um use my experiences from the military and my background, like where I just kept getting knocked down like really hard. Like I have to
Yeah.
admit, like I have to continually admit to myself, not be like, oh, it wasn't that bad. Like, no, it was bad.
Yeah.
Like it was really bad. My mental health
Yeah.
struggles, and then having the stroke and not being able to walk for a couple months, and then getting it all back. That's set me up. and I just carry those lessons with me everywhere. And then, especially bringing it back to the dad side, like try to show that to my kids. Like I
Yes.
try to involve them in the parasports world, so they are not unfamiliar with amputees, kids with spina bifida. They've come to all these things, and it's been fantastic, and it's opened up this huge community that we're involved in.
Yeah.
And
Well, you pointed out something a bit back there where you were talking about, finding your community and those things. And that's the one thing that I would say everybody involved that's come to like Home Dad Con or had some sort of connection with the National At Home Dad Network has seen as a stay-at-home dad, like the community that has been built up within that confine, and just the fact that, especially like when guys come to Home Dad Con who they're like, I'm not sure about this and they're whatever. And then they come to it and they find out like, oh, like I can be transparent. I don't have to hide behind this or that, because of how people might perceive me in the general public. But, I see people here sharing about, their mental health, or I see people sharing about like, their marital struggles, or their kids struggling through different things and whatever and stuff. And those are such important just elements of life, to be able to have people that can connect with you where you're at and not feel like you have to be somebody else. And so it's great to hear that through all of the things that you have persevered through, like that you have been able to, basically like, what's the word I'm looking for here? Like just kind of fuse into this community that's, really you're basically building off of each other. Like it seems like, like the give and take of it is just positive for everybody in that aspect.
Yep, absolutely. And I want to just jump in real quick because we do want to get to your goal for 2024, and we definitely want to do that next. Right. So because we're going to get sidetracked, but I have to say this because it's going to it needs to be said for me. There's one of the things that I've learned about in my journey, I guess, with mental health and things we do with support groups and support networks and things of that nature is really what I've learned is that all you need is for one person to open the door and walk through it. And then everyone else is willing to go. And when we're talking about someone who has served 3 tours as a Marine, right, and has had multiple traumatic injuries, and I mean, you say Marine, and for me, that's pretty high up there, honestly. The Marine Corps has a great reputation for that. I'm going to use this phrase, a manly man. I don't like that phrase, but what you expect when you hear someone is a Marine, they're going to be, hard charger. They're going to be doing the work. And then to be able to say, well, one of our veterans, one of our soldiers is now saying that they have these things going on. And for you to open that door and to be strong enough and brave enough to show that vulnerability is huge. And I want to congratulate you for being strong enough to do that, because it's so difficult, but really just encourage you in whatever we can do to keep you, boost your signal, so to speak, to keep doing that, because the veterans and the military really don't talk to anyone about these things who weren't in the military. It's one of those things and it should be. There's, there's things that you could talk about that I have no idea what you're talking about. I can read all the books, I can watch all the movies, I can do whatever the things, I watch, this TV show. I don't know anything about the true day-to-day life, that you lived. Right. And another veteran would know that talking to me inside of 5 minutes. I mean, he would, oh yeah, this guy, he's a civilian. He didn't know what I'm talking about. But for you to be doing that opens that door for all of our veterans. And that is just such a wonderful thing in a place that we need people talking. And I just want to tell you, I'm grateful that we've had this conversation and that you're out there talking. So before we get to the rest of the stuff, I just had to say that. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
And one other thing too, before we really get in, I was looking through your Instagram, and honestly, I love the fact that you are doing stuff with athletic brewing.
Yeah.
Because so it was kind of
I got
interesting a
one
few
right
years.
here.
Yeah, there you go. A few years ago, Matt Strain, who's on our board,
Hmm.
he has been sober for, I don't know, 6, 7, maybe 9 years. I don't remember what it is exactly, but he found the beer and started drinking it, and he was posting about it on Instagram. And I was like, dude, you need to like reach out to them. And he's like, oh, they don't want anything to do with me. I'm not really doing anything that falls within their brand line. And I'm like, yeah, but you're running, you're doing some stuff, and you're stay-at-home dad. Like, that'll be something interesting for them. And sure enough, like, they signed him on to be an ambassador,
Yeah.
which was really cool. And then he started really just like promoting the beer. And another dad in the organization, Kyle Denny, who lives out in Colorado, and this guy is an extreme runner. Like, we're talking, he'll run 100,
100K.
yeah, 100K.
Yeah.
Like,
What?
Ultra running.
yeah, and so, and he's really big into their beer as well. And so, like, when I pulled up your
Awesome.
Instagram and I saw like you're like holding cans of athletic, I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. And I just got a job
Yeah, they're
at a
great.
brewery here locally, and they actually keep athletic brewing in the coolers as well for
Nice.
guests that come in, and they want to hang out, but they, they're not drinking, but they can have an NA beer. And so
Yep.
yeah, I just thought that was really neat, and I just kind of wanted to put that out there as well.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, they've been really good. They're a partner that I've started with this year.
Great.
And then hopefully going into the Paralympic Games next year, it'll
Right.
blossom into some more.
So let's talk about that, because your original post was basically, and I'm just going to say this, and it is what it is, that you're looking for sponsors.
Yep.
And that's what you need in order to do this. I mean, it's just one of those things, and we all understand it. And the only thing you asked for was for people to follow you on social media. And I love that, because you understand, one, that you're talking to a community of other dads, and some of us could, give you a monetary donation, and some of us could not. But all you said is, yeah, could you follow me on social media? And that is so wonderful. And I hope you did get some followers from that and some movement forward. But because it was a self-promotion post, and unfortunately, unless you talk to the admins first, we have to take those down. So we did pull that down, and I'm hoping you put it up on the Saturday self-promotion thread. We have one every Saturday, and I would love to see it every Saturday if you want to put it on there. But so what I'd like to do is just kind of reiterate what that's about, what you're planning on doing in 2024, and where we can find you on social media so that we can follow you.
Yeah. So right now, obviously the ultimate goal is to qualify for the 2024 Paralympic Games in Paris, which I have a really good chance of doing. Coming into this year, I had the most points out of any paracyclist, period, on the U.S. team. And I just got selected for the World Cup teams that are next April and May. So I'll be able to score points for that. But basically, when you're an athlete, and not a lot of people realize this, but there's a lot of athletes out there who aren't Simone Biles or, Serena Williams or Michael Phelps. Those guys, they're the ones who get a lot of the big contracts and make a good living out of it. Everyone else is trying to scrap by. And we spend a lot of time training, a lot of time, going to these events, and sponsors are how we turn this from a hobby into a profession and become a professional athlete. And when you're reaching out to sponsors, one of the first things they ask you is, how many followers do you have? Which I think is can be really like arbitrary, because
Yes.
I could probably go buy 50,000 followers,
Yeah.
and be like, oh, 50,000 followers. But I don't think that's the way to do it. And I would rather be giving to like a true audience who follows me.
Right.
So yeah, so I put it up there. I was talking with the agency that I work with, and they're like, "Yeah, man, you just got to get more followers." Um, and I'm like, "Okay, well, I'll ask my fellow stay-at-home dads." And I just threw it up there on that post, and then you guys took it down, and I was like, "Ah, that was so dumb. I totally forgot," because I was like in the moment, and
yeah, that happens, honestly. No
yeah,
one's mad at you or anything like that.
yeah,
I really, honestly, being on the admin team, I dislike taking posts down. I mean, there's
no,
nothing, it's, you just got to do it. I mean, we can't allow it, it just
100%.
is what it is. But every time I'm like, man, I am sorry that I've got to kick your dog, but
I gotta be this guy.
gotta happen, right? And it's just, yeah. And I try to be as kind as possible, but anyway, didn't mean to run off with that. So yeah, once it was taken down, that's fine. But where can we find you then on social media? Where's your preferred?
Yep. My preferred is my Instagram. Yeah. DC Rides Trikes, so like Dennis Connors. So DC Rides Trikes, or you can just search me, Dennis Connors, and it should come up. My website has links to everything. It's DennisConnorsUSA.com. And you can find out more about me there. Yeah, and really like the two things that I'm hoping to do in the future with this is, one, get some more followers so I can get those sponsorships, so I can make this more of a living, make it a little easier on the family. And two, I'm really starting to like work on that public speaking side. So if anybody knows people who want me to come on and talk, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah.
And you can reach out to me through the website. You can reach out to me through social media. And I would love to come on and talk. I think I'm doing a webinar soon with Matt.
Yeah,
Yep.
good.
You are
Yeah,
definitely
good.
With you guys. So yeah, he also reached out after that post. The post was up for a very short period of time, but some good things happened out of it. So
yeah. Yeah, I immediately messaged you, and I'm pretty sure I messaged Matt too. I'm like, yeah, we need to move this forward. Come on, guys. Again, because it's fine to do it. You have a great message, and we want to promote that. It really, you broke the rules, and that's, I can't help you.
You broke the rules, and you got to come on the podcast.
People are like, yeah, we do want to help, yeah.
Yeah.
So, that's awesome.
Yeah. So,
but this is not an invitation for people to put a self-promotion post that I have to take down that you're going to get on the podcast. This does not normally happen. I want to make sure everybody hears that, because I don't want a bunch of them coming up. Hey, Danny, take my post down and put me on the foot. No, I don't need more work there. Anyway, sorry, shoot. Dennis, you were talking.
No worries. No. So yeah, that's the goal. Qualify for Paris. I've got some other goals. I've been rock climbing since I was 11 years old. So I just got back from the Para Rock Climbing National Championships.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah. Unfortunately, last year I won. This year I got second. A little bit of a hand slip on hold and put me in second place instead of first place, which is still awesome. So
it is, yeah.
Yeah, still on the U.S. team for that. So I'm on the U.S. team for climbing and for cycling. Yeah, so just trying to do my best in both those sports. Cycling first, because it is a Paralympic sport, and it is my first passion right now. And then climbing kind of helps me clear my head and keeps me sharp for cycling.
Dang, that's awesome, man. I was just thinking about so there's a comedian that I heard a while back talking about how he helped out at the I think it was the Atlanta Olympics back in the day, and he had run into a guy who was kind of down, kind of feeling a little mopey or whatever, and he was an athlete, and he walked up to him and he was like, "Hey man," he's like, "What's going on?" And he was like, I just finished my my event." I think he said he was like a kayaker or something like that. And he's like, "I finished 15th and I'm just a little disappointed with myself." And the guy was like, "How many people were in your field?" And he told him like, I think it was like 80 or 100 people or something like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And this guy in the middle of like the village just goes, "You're the 15th best kayaker in the world. That's amazing. And I'm just like, anytime like I hear somebody who's like, they didn't finish in first, it's like, think about where you're at compared to many other people. And it's like, you're, that person, like the best in the world kind of deal. Like, honestly, like dude, you're just so impressive with like the things that
number
you're
two twice by just this much. And it wasn't, it's basically, to me, it's like, okay, the perfect run with no human mistakes is who won. And then the person that made one human mistake is the one that came in second. And that's really, when you look at the technicals about most sports, especially competitions like this, it's that one tiny little thing. Like you like Brock said, on the curve, you learn to lean a little bit too much in and you lose some speed or whatever.
Yeah.
Or like you said, I got to go around this guy and this guy's got a straight shot. I'm in second place. It's just that tiny little thing. It's amazing. And it really doesn't change how amazing an athlete is, in my mind.
So you were talking about that, you're doing some talks and presentations and things like those lines for being a speaker. Like, are there certain areas that you're looking to get into to be a speaker? Like, are you trying to get into schools, or are you trying to present this more to like corporations? Like, what are you kind of going towards with your speaking platform?
Definitely interested in speaking mostly to corporations and kind of, reminding people that even when things are very difficult, you can still achieve your goals. And just giving that message of don't think of it the way that they tell you to think of it. Like, don't be afraid to ask for help, and don't be afraid, to be vulnerable and to open up and to say, I'm having a problem or I'm needing help. Because if you don't, you will fail.
Yeah.
Like, you can only tough it out for so long. Eventually it catches up to you. And I'm like literally like living example of that, right?
Yes, you are.
So yeah, corporations, schools, definitely. Just, I guess that's like the sucker dad in me, right? Like, if elementary schools want me to come talk or whatever, of course I will come. If universities want me to come talk, of course I will come. I'm just trying to spread this message. One of my best friends told me to really, hey, you should focus on that. You should focus on the speaking. And he said, you know why? Is because you have a message that not that you should share, that needs to be shared. It needs to be out there.
Representation.
Your story and your life is like, it needs to be out. We all need to hear it.
Yeah.
And he's like, so that's what you need to focus on, is like sharing it with everybody. And everybody can learn something from it. So I was like, okay, like, let's do it.
Most definitely. Yeah. When you were talking about it, I was just thinking to myself, I'm like, man, there's like corporations out there that, and we were talking with our buddy Sergio about this, because he's a part of our DEI or JDI group, and we were talking, and it was like he was like, oh, I just have come to the realization that people who have disabilities like fall into that, like into that category, into that group of the JDI. And it was like there are so many corporations that are just trying to figure that out, and having somebody like yourself that can come in and talk about what you're doing, what you've gone through, and really shining a light on just how you've moved through it, and what you've done, like, is something that I would hope corporations and other places would find to be of a positive attribute to bring in.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, and I guess that's kind of one of the goals of the next 2 years too, is just like being able to get that story out and get more eyes on. That's another reason I asked for people to, like, hey, check out my profiles. If you like them, follow me. You know, like if you want to support this, follow me and tell your friends, basically.
Yeah. Well, you got some fun stuff on here, man. I mean, honestly, like I love it, especially from the climbing aspect of it. You got some great pictures that, you know, just you're showing kind of your path on how you do the rock climbing and things like that. I see that on there, and you know, you've got stuff on your showing how you're training and different areas like that. So I mean, it's an you've got a very entertaining account with a lot of great content, honestly. So
Thank
um
you.
I hope that anybody listening to this definitely does start following you, because it's definitely worth following. And you know, I'm glad that we were able to get you on to talk
Yeah.
about everything that's going on with you. And I hope that, you know, being on the podcast and us getting this message out there will attract more people to you. And honestly, like, you know, this is the nice thing about these podcasts too, is like, you know, you're trying to get your thing out. Just like you can put this in the email pitch that you're sending me, like, hey, like I did this, you know, kind of thing as well. And that way
Yeah.
people can kind of hear a little bit more of your story through that as well. But that, and you know, being on the webinar with Matt, I hope that we can just continue to boost the signal for you. Honestly, like I'm just
I
going to be
appreciate it.
I'm going to be completely selfish and say that I hope that some way somehow you might make it to Milwaukee in September, and we actually would get to meet you at Home Dad Con. But I know that you're also training, so I understand if you're not
Well,
able to make
September,
it.
everything's pretty much done in August, and then not again until November when we have
Oh, so there is a window of opportunity.
So there is a window, and I think it was Matt who did send me. I think it was Matt who sent me he's like, hey, by the way, here's the form to fill out if you want to speak at Home Dad Con.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. And maybe we'll get back to Portland, because we were in Portland a few years ago and it was great.
That would be fun. I wouldn't mind going to Portland.
It was a great thing. It was expensive. That's the problem. It always comes down to what can we do with no money? Oh, well, we can do this. So it's a different thing, but nonetheless, I do hope we get to meet you in person at some point.
That'd be great.
And definitely good luck on all of your training through this year and finding sponsors and making it to Paris.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, Paris. That's the goal.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show. Definitely, you know, everybody that's listening, follow Dennis, you know, boost the signal. Let's get him some sponsors, get him to Paris, all that good stuff. And until next time, have a great day.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. This is great.
I'm a dad, that's what I do.